Welcome to everyone tuning in today. We are excited here at OCP to share with you this new webinar titled Responsorial Psalms, Exploring New Styles and Opportunities. My name is Scot Crandal, and I'm a music development specialist here at OCP. I'm also happy to be here today with soprano Amanda Weller, alto Stella Garcia Lopez, tenor Travis Powers, bass Scott Soper, and our technical guru Jethro Higgins.
Can't see me.
There he is. Before we get started, if you have other programs or apps running on your computer, I recommend that you close them. It will affect the speed at which the slides load and consequently the quality of your viewing and listening experience. For questions, you'll notice there's a sidebar and a control panel where you can submit questions. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the control panel. And at the end, we will answer as many of the questions as we can get to. And thank you for some of you for sending the questions in advance. I enjoyed reading them and hope you will find our answers helpful. Let's get started. A little background about me, if some of you are not familiar with who I am. It's my role and the role of many of my colleagues here at OCP to develop music and projects that help music directors, musicians, and parishes deepen their faith and promote strong congregational singing. We work with a variety of composers and text writers throughout the year in order to meet the demand for new liturgical music in a variety of styles and uses. I've been a parish musician for over 20 years, and I'm thrilled to be here for my very first webinar. And we're going to explore ideas that I hope will enhance your ability to strengthen singing of responsorial psalms and gospel acclamations in all the parishes represented by you. Over recent years, OCP has taken steps to make our offerings of responsorial psalms and gospel acclamations more robust. We've gone from offering one comprehensive resource, Responde y Acclama, to now 6. And that doesn't include additional psalms available through our missals, hymnals, and octavos. So today we'll take a look at an in-depth look at each of these 6 resources, the last of which will be our newest Psalter, Spirit and Psalm, which we are very excited about. And we will look at that at the end, toward the end. So, before we jump into the music, let's review some of what the general instruction of the Roman Missal has to say about psalms and gospel acclamations. Section 61. After the first reading comes the responsorial psalm, which is an integral part of the liturgy of the word and holds great liturgical and pastoral importance because it fosters meditation on the word of God. The responsorial psalm should correspond to each reading and should, as a rule, be taken from the lectionary. The text goes on to include such ideas as that it's preferable that the responsorial psalm be sung, especially the people's response. Common psalms may also be used during various seasons of the year in order to strengthen the singing, if that's the best for your community. And psalms can be recited if singing is just not a possibility for whatever reason. And another option is for the refrains to be sung and the verses can be recited. So that's what the general instruction says about psalms. Let's see what it says about gospel acclamations. Section 62. After the reading that immediately precedes the gospel, the Alleluia or another chant laid down by the rubrics is sung as the liturgical time requires. An acclamation of this kind constitutes a rite or act in itself by which the gathering of the faithful welcomes and greets the Lord, who is about to speak to them in the gospel and profess their faith by means of the chant. It is sung by everybody, standing, and is led by the choir or a cantor, being repeated as the case requires. The verse, on the other hand, is sung either by the choir or by a cantor. So we have some pretty clear directions offered here by these writings. And these writings give composers and music directors valuable information so we can make decisions about what to sing, but obviously what the documents don't say is which ones to sing, which styles to use, and which approaches to use. So that's what we're here to do today. This slide right here gives you a roadmap of where we're going today. These are our psalm and gospel acclamation resources that we'll be looking at. And my hope is that by the end, you'll have a good understanding of each and maybe an inkling into which ones could work best for your community. There's no reason to limit yourself to just one. Sometimes using a combination can be very, very beneficial. And then I'm also excited, of course, to introduce Spirit and Psalm at the end. So let's jump in and discover what each of these editions has to offer. For the first of the six, let's take a look at Responde and Acclaim. Responde and Acclaim was composed by one of OCP's publishers, Owen Allstott, in the mid to late 1970s. I think it stood the test of time because it provides easy-to-sing refrains for the congregation and easy-to-follow chanted verses that can be sung by a choir or cantor. The chords are very guitar-friendly, and to add variety, many of the refrains have descants, which you'll hear Amanda sing in a moment. As many of you are aware, Responde and Acclaim is featured in OCP's missals and hymnals with readings, which makes it very convenient to implement. So, for each resource, we'll sing through the Psalm and Gospel Acclamation for the first Sunday of Advent, Year A, which is the current liturgical year. And the psalm for that day is Psalm 122, Let Us Go Rejoicing. And we'll sing one verse of each psalm in the interest of time. So, our first psalm from Responde and Acclaim, Let Us Go Rejoicing, and here's how it goes. Let us go rejoicing to the house of the Lord. Let us go rejoicing to the house of the Lord. I rejoice because they said to me, we will go up to the house of the Lord. And now we have set foot within your gates, O Jerusalem. Let us go rejoicing to the house of the Lord. And you'll notice that I played very lightly on the verses. And the one thing you can do is you can have the verses sung a cappella by a quartet or a choir, and it can be very effective. Okay, now the gospel acclamation. Now I will say most of the resources we're looking at today have approximately 6 to 9 different gospel acclamation refrains, so that you have some sense of consistency throughout the church year. Responde and Acclaim has 6 different gospel acclamation responses. So here's the one for the first Sunday of Advent. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia. Show us, Lord, your love, and grant us your salvation. Alleluia, alleluia, alleluia. Beautiful work. Okay, so as you can hear, Responde and Acclaim provides straight-ahead music, simple enough for almost anyone to pick up. Now, let's go to the second of our 6 editions, and that is Responde y Aclama. And it is basically kind of an equivalent of Responde and Acclaim in Spanish. And we're going to have Stella sing for us the first Sunday of Advent. This resource features a variety of composers. Bob Hurd, Mary Frances Reza, Jaime Cortez, Pedro Rubalcaba, and Stella and Rudy Lopez, and many others. Similar to Respond and Acclaim, it has chanted verses in 4 parts and refrain melodies that are sometimes longer and a bit more developed than what is found in RNA. And for parishes using Unidos en Cristo or Misa del Dia, Responde y Aclama is especially convenient since the refrains are found in those resources. So, here we are, the first Sunday of Advent. Stella will sing for us here.
Qué alegría cuando me dijeron, vamos a la casa del Señor. Qué alegría cuando me dijeron, vamos a la casa del Señor. Qué alegría cuando me dijeron, vamos a la casa del Señor. Qué alegría cuando me dijeron, vamos a la casa del Señor. Qué alegría cuando me dijeron, vamos a la casa del Señor. Ya están pisando nuestros pies tus umbrales, Jerusalén. Qué alegría cuando me dijeron, vamos a la casa del Señor. Qué alegría cuando me dijeron, vamos a la casa del Señor.
Beautiful, Stella. So, as you can see, very, very approachable melodies. And let's hear the Gospel Acclamation. Oh, also I should mention, that psalm we just sang was by Stella and Rudy. So, here we go with the Gospel Acclamation.
Aleluya, aleluya, aleluya. Aleluya, aleluya, aleluya. Ah, Señor, que podamos ver tu amor y que tu salvación nos toque a todos. Aleluya, aleluya, aleluya.
Responde y Aclama. Okay, let's move on now to our next resource called the Living Church Acclaims. The Living Church Acclaims is a project developed by me. I composed this over the course of about 3 years, and it's in its 3rd year of parish use currently. It's offered as a contemporary styled alternative to RNA, and the unique feature about the Living Church Acclaims is that the verses are through composed. There's a separate line of music for each verse, which the thinking behind that was that it allows each verse to be, the music for each verse to be tailored to the meaning of the text of each verse. This helps cantors to proclaim the text with perhaps more expressiveness. And the verses between the melodies are all very similar, so that it's pretty easy to learn them. The verses can be chanted, if desired, with the accompaniment playing chords. And the refrains are in 3-part harmony. And we will sing, the tenors usually sing the higher harmony an octave lower, the altos sing the lower harmony, and the sopranos and basses sing the melody. Okay, so here we are with the Psalm 122 from the Living Church Acclaims. And we encourage you all to sing along. Let us go rejoicing to the house of the Lord. Let us go rejoicing to the house of the Lord.
Let us go rejoicing to the house of the Lord. Let us go rejoicing to the house of the Lord.
I rejoice because they said to me, we will go up to the house of the Lord. And now we have set foot within your gates, O Jerusalem.
Let us go rejoicing to the house of the Lord. Let us go rejoicing to the house of the Lord.
All right, so there's that. As you can see, you have the verses on the next page through compose for each one. They're all very similar to each other. Now, let's look at the Gospel Acclamation. Show us, Lord, your love, and grant us your salvation.
Alleluia, 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 alleluia.
The Living Church acclaims. Okay. Our fourth resource that we're going to cover today is called a Lectionary Psalter by Father John Schiavone. Father John Schiavone, he's a parish priest who has served the Archdiocese of Los Angeles for more than 40 years. And his melodies are distinct in this collection because he uses modal harmonies, various modes, and they're often inspired by Gregorian chant. And you'll hear that when we run through this. The approach evokes what many music directors describe as a prayerful, reflective sense. So we'll have Scott cantor this psalm for us, and the verses will be sung in 4-part harmony. Here we go.
Let us go rejoicing to the house of the Lord. Let us go rejoicing to the house of the Lord. I rejoiced because they said to me, we will go up to the house of the Lord. And now we have set foot within your gates, O Jerusalem. Let us go rejoicing to the house of the Lord.
All right, so you can hear that modal work that he's doing in there. And the other thing that's a little different about this collection than the other ones. The other ones that we're looking at today are annual publications. So when you you can just open up the page, you find the date for today, and you just open it up and sing it. The Lectionary Psalter by John Schiavone is in one volume. So it's set up a little bit differently, but it does have psalms for all the Sundays, for all 3 years. Okay, so let's look at the Gospel Acclamation from the Lectionary Psalter. Alleluia, alleluia. Schiavone. And now let's move on to our fifth resource of the day. It is Forever I Will Sing by Tim Smith. It's in its second year of parish use and is by well-known composer Tim Smith. Tim's harmonic and melodic approach, he fuses traditional and contemporary elements, and it creates a unique style, and we're going to hear that right now. The harmonic movement in the verses especially create interest. Here we have the Let Us Go Rejoicing Yet Again. Here we go. Let us go rejoicing, let us go rejoicing to the house of the Lord.
Let us go rejoicing, let us go rejoicing to the house of the Lord.
I rejoice because they said to me, we will go up to the house of the Lord. And now we have set foot within your gates, O Jerusalem.
Let us go rejoicing, let us go rejoicing to the house of the Lord.
And the gospel acclamation. It goes like this. Lord, your love, and grant us your salvation. Alleluia, alleluia. I like how it ends on the kind of the fifth of the dominant there, because it leads you into the gospel. Okay. So that's Tim Smith's project. Now, before we get to the grand finale, Spirit and Psalm, I just want to show you this slide here, because sometimes people, customers and our users of our materials can forget that we have a lot of Psalms in our resources. So this just shows you where you might find them if you're using one of these resources currently. It gives you the range of numbers, and the indexes are very helpful in the accompaniment versions of these resources, because they can help you find the right psalm. So Breaking Bread, Journey Songs, Glory and Praise, Spirit and Song, Flor de Canto. And Flor de Canto actually is kind of cool because it takes all the psalms and separates them out into its own book. So you can get that. It's really, really great for Flor de Canto. So there you go. We have lots of psalms in our resources, and so take a look at those if you get a chance. Now let's look at our new publication, brand new, as in within the last couple days, becoming available. The Spirit and Psalm 2018. It will be for liturgical use starting in December. So. Before we get into the music, I just want to set the stage a little bit for this product, because this is a result of at least 3 years of development. And we got feedback and ideas from lots of people. We sent out surveys, we talked to many of our composers, and we ended up with a product that we're very proud of and excited to present to you. The composers that are represented in this book include Curtis Stephen, Chris Mulia, Sarah Hart, Josh Blakesley, Jaime Cortez, Tom Booth, Steve Angrasano, Cooper Ray, Jackie Francois, Ben Walther, Casey McKinley, Jesse Manabusen. So some really top-notch composers we have involved in this project. And like the other Psalters we've mentioned, it's organized in an easy-to-use annual format You open it up to the day, and there it is. Now, the most distinctive feature that we're going to go over today is the notational style of the verses of the Psalms, because it's very innovative and it allows flexibility like no other resource. You can sing this as a song through or metered, so like a kind of sounds when you finish the psalm, it sounds like a song, or you can do the verses in a chant style, and the notation makes it very simple. And I should mention that you are actually the first audience to experience this resource. So let's get into it. We are going to sing 4 psalms from this, and one of the gospel acclamations, so you can get an idea. We will start with the first Sunday of Advent. Now, it's not Psalm 122, Let Us Go Rejoicing, because the upcoming year starts with Psalm 80 by Chris Mullion. So we are going to start with this one, and we're going to sing 2 verses. Verse 1 will be chanted by Scott, and verse 2 will be sung metered by Scott. So follow along, and then we'll talk a little bit about it once we're finished.
Turn to you, let us see your face, and we shall be saved. Lord, make us turn to you, let us see your face, and we shall be saved. O Shepherd of Israel, hearken. From your throne upon the cherubim shine forth. Rouse your power and come to save us. Lord, make us turn to you. Let us see your face, and we shall be saved. Once again, O Lord of hosts, look down from heaven and see. Take care of this vine and protect what your right hand has planted. The Son of Man, whom you yourself made strong. Lord, make us turn to you. Let us see your face, and we shall be saved.
Great work, Scott. So, as you can see, it looks a little different than what you might have noticed before. Now, when you actually do the psalm, you probably won't do verse 1 chanted and verse 2 in metered style. You'll probably choose one, but for demonstration purposes, we wanted to show you this. So let's just take a quick look at the music. As you can see on the accompaniment for the verses, some of the notes in the accompaniment are full-size, regular notes, and some of them are cue size. Now, if you want to do it in a chant style, all you have to do is play the full-size notes and follow the cantor. If you want to do it in a metered style, you can just play it in rhythm, like a regular accompaniment, with the cue notes, and it all comes out just right. And we've made special attention to the number of words for each note so the cantor can easily fit in the words to match the metered style. You can also improvise, you can change the notes, you can change the rhythms of the words as you're singing them, and so it provides maximum flexibility and a great compact resource. So, let's just sing, we're going to sing, just sing a refrain so you can hear some more of the music from Spirit and Psalm. Let's sing the refrain for Palm Sunday. Oh, we didn't do the gospel acclamation. Let's do that first. So, here's a gospel acclamation. Now, since the gospel acclamation only has one verse, we don't need to have different versions of the verse for chanted or metered. It's just metered, which makes it very simple. Okay, here's the gospel acclamation for the first Sunday of Advent. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Spirit and Psalm includes 9 different gospel acclamation refrains. So you can have some consistency, and it makes it easy to learn. Let's sing Sarah Hart's setting, just the refrain of the Palm Sunday Psalm 22.
My God, why have you abandoned me? My God, why have you abandoned me?
Let's do it one more time.
My God, why have you abandoned
Sometimes when you sing a responsorial psalm, it can be good to maybe sing it twice at the end. Give a bit more punch. All right, now let's move ahead to the psalm for Easter Sunday. And this one we will hear again an example of the verses. We'll sing verse 1. Amanda will sing verse 1 chanted and then verse 2 metered. So, Easter Sunday, Psalm 118 goes like this. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice. Let us rejoice.
This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad.
Everybody.
This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice. Let us rejoice. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad.
Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his mercy endures forever. Let the house of Israel say, his mercy endures forever.
This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice. Let us rejoice. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad.
The right hand of the Lord has struck with power. The right hand of the Lord is exalted. I shall not die but live and declare the works of the Lord.
This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice. Let us rejoice. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad.
Great. Nice, Amanda. So I just played those cue notes when she was chanting, and it made it nice and easy. And then I played the regular size notes when she chanted, and then when she sang it in a metered style, just played all the cue notes, and it sounds like a regular song. So we're so excited about this approach. Let's look at one more. We'll just sing the refrain to kind of close out our session here by Tom Booth. It's his Taste and See. Happens to fall on the 19th Sunday in Ordinary Time, August 12th, 2018. You'll see that there. And we will just sing this a few times just to get an idea of some more of the music. We're so happy that Tom was involved in this project. It goes like this. Taste and see the goodness of the Lord. Taste and see the goodness of the Lord.
Taste and see the goodness of the Lord. Taste and see the goodness of the Lord. Taste and see the goodness of the Lord. Taste and see the goodness of the Lord.
So we're very excited, as you can tell, about this publication. And we want to make sure that you walk away from this webinar not only being well informed about the new Spirit in Psalm, but also having a good picture of what OCP has to offer for Psalms and Gospel Acclamations. As I mentioned at the beginning, we've really made an attempt over the years to increase our offerings. So this, you can see our wrap-up here, where we went through each of these different resources. Hopefully, you have found 1, 2, 3, maybe all of them that work for you. They all have different things to offer, and we really hope that you'll have a chance to get to know them. So I think we've covered everything that I was hoping to cover today. I did look at many of the questions that came in and incorporated them into the presentation, but I know there's probably more. So let's talk about what might be going through your mind. And I'd like to invite Scott to come join me because down here, just because Scott Soper worked on this project, he was kind of the person, the engine behind it, and had a lot to do with making it happen, right?
I guess so.
So if you have any questions, and of course, if any of us have answers to some questions, we can feel free to chime in. But so, Jethro, what do we have for questions?
Hey, Scott. We've got a lot of really great questions. Just a reminder that if you want your question answered on the webinar, please enter it in your control panel now so that we can ask Scott and Scott the questions.
Yes.
So here's the first one. Do you have any advice for helping cantors who maybe aren't really prepared for the cantor role? Maybe they don't come prepared, or they have the wrong approach to being a cantor, like they think it's a solo. Do you have any advice for a music director in that situation?
That's a good question. Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is, I think that for less experienced cantors, the question, how do you get prepared? How do you get better? I think that there's a combination of things. Definitely watching other cantors and talking to other cantors who have done it a lot. Find someone with lots of experience. Maybe bounce some ideas off what works for them. That's the first thing that comes to my mind.
And when it comes to proclaiming the psalm especially, it's always good to start with the text. I think a lot of times cantors get so wrapped up in the musical performance aspect of it. And when you encourage people to really sit down and study what it is that they're singing, that it takes a little bit of the me away from it and reminds us that it's about the communal prayer. And of course the words are so important and inspiring that that often helps cantors feel a little bit more comfortable. And of course it's always a good idea to break down anything that you're trying to learn into smaller pieces. So if you start with the text and then move into the music, that makes it more manageable, especially if you're just starting out.
Yeah,
Great.
well put.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
great
just
answer.
reciting the text by itself can be a great way to start.
So here's a person who seems like they may be interested in dipping their toe into spirit and psalm, but they have some reservations. So perhaps we can help them out with that. This person asks, "We've used the same psalm resource for decades, and participation is pretty good. So I'm reluctant to introduce a new program. Do you have any thoughts on this?"
My first thought is, I understand. When you've had that long of a tradition with a certain resource, I can see how it could be kind of unsettling. One thing you can do though is you can introduce it gradually. You don't have to just start singing it every single Sunday. You could do a little bit here and there, maybe once a month, and maybe twice a month.
And certainly if your community has favorites from whatever resource you're already using, stick with those. Maybe look at the Sundays where you feel, we didn't quite sing that particular psalm as well. Maybe that's an opportunity to introduce a new version.
Yeah, and if their community is anything like ours is at my parish, there's multiple masses that have a little different take stylistically on the music they select for liturgy, and so maybe it's not an either or, but a both and in a situation where maybe it's right for a particular liturgy, but maybe not right to switch another liturgy over.
Yeah.
So another question we have is, are there any psalms that are more kid-friendly? Because this person has a children's choir and wants to know what psalms they should be using for their children's choir.
Well, certainly the new Spirit and Psalm resource is very engaging for young people.
Yeah, I would second that. I mean, the most contemporary resources would be Spirit and Psalm, Forever I Will Sing by Tim Smith, and Living Church Acclaims. Those are probably the most contemporary. Responde y Aclama is actually quite contemporary as well. So I think that kids will resonate with Spirit and Psalm.
Stella has a comment.
I wanted to make a comment.
Yeah.
I have a children's choir, and once a month they sing at the Spanish Mass, and I have one of the kids lead the psalm from Responde y Aclama.
Yeah.
Because they're so simple. And just like Responde and Acclaim and the New Spirit and Psalm, it was created in a way that is simple, not just for adults, but for children and for youth. And I think that all of these resources will cross generations between kids, youth, and adults.
Yeah. Well said. Yes.
Yeah. Don't sell your children's abilities short, because they're often capable of and interested in more than a lot we give them credit for.
That's great. So here's a person that's interested in advice on descants. They ask, are there any norms for singing the descant, i.e. adding the descant after the first time, or just the last refrain? So kind of like, where does the descant fit into the responsorial psalm?
You want to talk about that, Amanda?
Yeah, descant is a lovely spice to be added after the assembly has really gotten comfortable with the refrain. It can be added usually towards the end, the last time, maybe the last two refrains of the psalm. Depending on how many verses there are, you don't want to take away the emphasis of the words, especially at the beginning. So you go from a single voice speaking, proclaiming the words so that everyone hears and understands, everybody joins. You might add parts. Last, you add the descant to just bring the attention to bring some interest and interest to the music there. So I wouldn't do it every time, last time or last couple times.
Yeah.
That's great. So here's a question about Spirit and Psalm. You mentioned on one of the other psalm resources that it could be good to have the accompaniment paired back and just have the voices come forward. Would that work well with Spirit and Psalm?
Yeah, I mean, the accompaniments have been designed and arranged for Spirit and Psalm by many of our composers and the help of Scott and a lot of our arrangers to be flexible. So they're simple in nature, first of all, simple in nature with the melody in the top so that that can help the cantors. but the verses especially, you can pare down the accompaniment. Just play the regular size notes if they're chanting. It's definitely designed to be flexible, and sometimes the less you play, the better the cantor can be heard. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
Yeah, it's good to experiment with accompaniment styles, and the key to that really comes from listening, paying attention to, how is your cantor doing? Do they need more support underneath them?
Yeah.
Does the assembly seem to be picking up on the melody? And you can always, if you're flexible, change midstream. Like at the end of the last psalm we sang, Taste and See, once we got that rhythm going, it's very easy just to drop the accompaniment out and let the voice, which of course is really what we're all about here, is singing our prayer.
Yeah.
Let the voice just take over.
So another music director is asking for an ensemble like a contemporary liturgy ensemble, if it's just a few voices and they're kind of lower on the training spectrum, do you have any suggestions for introducing spirit and psalm with an ensemble like that?
Well, I think sometimes one of the challenges can be with a new resource is getting the harmonies locked in. If you're a vocal ensemble, like it sounds like this is, so it's always great. You don't have to sing the harmonies right away. Get that melody really strongly suited, really strongly set into your voice. And then maybe just sing one of the harmony parts, to start off with. Maybe, the alto or just the tenor part. And then kind of build, I would say. But start simple, maybe.
And the verses can be sung either chanted or metrically. Chanting them allows the cantor more flexibility to take their time if they seem unsure of how to incorporate the rhythmic aspect of metered verses. And of course, we also have every single psalm and gospel acclamation in Spirit and Psalm has been recorded, including every single verse. So that's a good resource also for learning these new pieces.
If I could add one other thing, is that as you go along and as you start to perform them more often, you'll actually become more familiar with the harmonies because they're all written in this similar fashion. They all are in thirds and sixths, and so you'll pick those up and it'll actually start to become more muscle memory and in hearing what those harmonies actually are. That's the great thing about Spirit and Psalm, is that it's pretty much the exact same thing all throughout, maybe a couple rhythmic changes, whatever, but it's easy enough resource that it will eventually become second nature to you as a singer.
That's
great advice. Here's a great question about bilingual psalms. The question is, this person is looking for a psalm resource that will fit for both their English and their Spanish worshiping communities so that they can all sing from the same resource. Do you have any suggestions on that?
There is a collection that came out quite a few years ago called Cantaré Eternamente.
It's true. Yeah.
And it includes all bilingual psalms for the special celebrations where communities come together. And I have found that in my parish, we've been using those psalms a lot. I use them in the Spanish Mass, they use them in the English Mass, and then when we come together, we have something in common. And they're more contemporary in nature, some more Latin style. Many of these are included in our missals and hymnals, like Floricanto, Unidos en Cristo, and maybe even some in Breaking Bread and Heritage. So these are great examples. If you like those psalms that you already have in your missal program, you might want to look through Cantaré Eternamente. It has volume 1 and volume 2. Volume 1 has Advent Christmas psalms, and volume 2 is Lent and Easter Holy Week.
And and actually that is on our Psalms page. If you go to ocp.org, don't do it now, but when we're done, ocp.org/psalm-resources. ocp.org/psalm-resources. The one that Stella's talking about is there among the other ones we're talking about, and even a couple others. I
think that resource also has common psalms. psalms, so that you can
Oh, right, yeah.
select a bilingual psalm for the season and really get used to it.
One psalm you might recognize is Gusten y Vean by Mary Frances Reza.
Oh, yes,
That
right.
came from this collection.
Oh, okay.
So if you like that one, you might like some of the other ones.
Yeah.
So this is a challenge that I think a lot of music directors have, and so it would be great to get some advice for them. This person is interested in using a new psalm resource, but their pastor is very comfortable with the resource they use now and not keen to switch. Do you have any suggestions on how that parish might be able to switch to a new resource?
Yeah. Well, it kind of is similar in a way to the other question that was asked, where, change can be obviously difficult with regard to what songs are sung. Again, the first thing that comes to my mind is gradual. Something small. Start small.
Yeah, we musicians, we often get excited by what's new and shiny, which is great because it's that passion for communicating through music that's brought us to this ministry.
Yeah.
But we have to always keep in mind that we maybe want to move a little bit faster than the people in the pews.
Yeah.
So it's good
Yeah.
to take things gradually and not to change things dramatically overnight, but introduce a new psalm here or there, rather than maybe the pastor is concerned that they want to just abandon the old entirely in favor of the new, and we certainly don't recommend that. But there are plenty of options for people to choose from to take what has worked well in your community and continue adding to it.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to add,
Yeah.
it would be a good idea for you to learn the psalm really well and to practice it with people before the service so that
right.
they feel comfortable with the psalm. And this way you don't crash and burn right from the beginning. So prepare really well, prepare the assembly, and then the experience will be that much better.
That's great. Here's a question we sort of touched on already, but it's a little bit more specific. This particular ensemble has never done 4-part harmony on psalm verses and is interested in making a go at it. So do you have any suggestions or advice for them on how to first introduce 4-part harmony for psalm verses?
Wow. Yeah, well, that's exciting to try something new like that. I applaud that. Well, one thing I do with my choir, if we're learning something in 4-part, and I sometimes, some of the members definitely gravitate toward the melody, or it's difficult for them to hear their part. So I like to introduce the 4 parts before I show them the melody sometimes. Like, okay, here's our new piece, and it's in 4 parts. Basses, let's learn your part. So they get it right away without being distracted by what the melody is. And you can do that, maybe leaving the melody for last. That can be a way to reinforce the parts. That's one idea.
Yeah, and you can also, again, break it down into different elements. Especially if it's chanted style verse, have everyone just recite the text together without singing it, so they start to get a sense of the rhythmic aspect. And then maybe learn the parts, but leave the text out. Just sing on la or lu until they get a good feel for the pitches.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we're running near the end, and we want to be respectful of everyone's time. So this will be our last question, although we have a pile of questions here to answer. So we'll talk more about that in a second on our last slide. But the last question is, what is the proper usage of a common psalm, and how does one use common psalms in liturgy?
Well, I think that, sometimes it could be daunting to have a different psalm for each Sunday for certain communities. If that is just too much to handle, then common psalms are our way to handle that. And the thing to remember about common psalms is that the documents talk about how it's preferable to have the psalm from the lectionary that matches the day, but it's not necessary. It's not required. It's preferable. So I would say that music directors and parishes should feel free to use common psalms if it's going to, especially if it's going to enhance the singing. If they're doing it a psalm every single Sunday and it's just too much, if it's a very small community or, something like that, where if it's just too much, then it's better for the people to sing confidently than to have to sing something new every week. I think that's something to think about.
And the common psalms also do appear on specific dates, specific Sundays throughout the year too. So if you start with the common psalms, you're building your repertoire and might later move into the specific psalm for each day.
Right. Oh, and also back to that question about how do you introduce psalms and everything. Using a common psalm is one way to do that. If you're going to switch to a new resource, a new style, you can perhaps choose the common psalm from that resource and use that over a period of time and really get used to it.
That's a really good suggestion. Like I said, we're running short on time, so we're going to have to move on. But we do have all of your questions, so we will be responding to those.
So you should definitely feel free to contact OCP about the different resources we've talked about today. And we are so happy that you all joined us. And thank you for all your questions. And we have a webinar coming up. Do you want to talk about that, Stella?
Sure. There is a webinar coming up, and I believe it's in Spanish. And it's focusing on effective recommendations for capital campaigns in your parish. It is called Recomendaciones Efectivas para la Corresponsabilidad Católica y Recaudación de Fondos. It will be presented by one of our composers, Gordon Ruiz. So if you're wanting to, and it will be on July 25th at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So if you're wanting to build funds and so that you can buy more resources, this new Spirit and Psalm, encourage some of your Spanish choir members or your Hispanic ministry director to listen to this webinar.
Thank you, Stella. Great. Well, I think that's it.
Well, thank you all for being here. God bless your ministries, and we'll see you again another time.